So make sure you take all this into context, guys, because there are good foods, that have a lot of nutrient quality. That micronutrients matter, which is another thing, right? As food volume goes down, we need a certain amount of minerals. We need a certain amount of phytonutrients to maintain healthy cells, to improve detoxification as we're losing body fat, which body fat is essentially doubles as energy storage and a trash can for our body. So we store tons of fat soluble toxins in our body fat. So when you start losing body fat, especially a significant amount, those toxins have to go somewhere. And we just talked about being in too much of a calorie restriction. Well, it'll affect my ability to make glutathione, which is one of my main detoxifiers. It'll affect my ability to, just fuel my liver to be able to fuel detoxification. Because detoxification is not thought as an acute need for the body. It's thought more long-term, and when we're overly stressed or we're in a big calorie deficit, we tend to focus on what we need immediately, right? Not what we need a day from now, a month from now, a week from now. Our body resorts to only caring about the stuff it needs immediately, and detoxification often gets put at the wayside. So you add in excess toxins coming in, and you add in poor detoxification. And then if you want to throw in a third variable, you look at what most people will do during that fat loss thing is they will resort to more stimulants, more caffeine. They even things like stimulating amino acids and stuff like that, while normally not too bad, because of the state they put the body in, can suppress detoxification even further, right? So when the nervous system is chronically agitated, or if it's in, if your ANS is always in that, fight or flight mode instead of that, rest, recover, and detoxify mode, well, now you're gonna have just less hours of the day that your slow, sluggish liver can work on detoxifying. And by the way, the liver is also responsible for turning over growth hormone into IGF, which is going to be an important feedback loop for how much growth hormone you're making, which is a huge factor in fat loss, as well as thyroid hormone. And that IGF is going to affect how well you maintain muscle mass and maintain insulin sensitivity in your muscle tissue as you lose body fat. Because just because you are training, you can get to the point where you actually start to bias less glucose and nutrient partitioning to those muscle tissues once you reach to a certain point where other systems are stressed, because your body will look and it'll be like, all right, we have this much storage in the muscles, but we are not going to super compensate any of that for high intensity workouts because everybody else is hurting a little bit now too. So you'll get to the point where, all right, cortisol levels are here, and so what we're going to do is we're going to partition more nutrients into the cells that are responding to stress rather than to muscles and movement. So you'll get to we'll say a point where you kind of maintain a mild flatness in your muscle tissue, and you can't get any more than that, right? Because your body essentially figures out that it's not going to have enough glucose to fill up that tissue, as well as everything else, your brain and your liver and other things that need vital glucose, like the kidneys and the red blood cells. So just because you're in a calorie deficit doesn't mean you're always going to be good at using sugar, right? Especially when we're talking about from a muscular perspective, which is mostly what we're focused on from a training performance perspective. But we also need to be using sugar well from a detoxification perspective. We need the liver and the kidneys to be able to either use glucose. The liver needs to be good at making glucose, which means its ability to use fat for fuel, and be able to use protein for gluconeogenesis needs to be good. So its mitochondrial health needs to be good. And that can suffer if it's full of toxins or it's under a bunch of oxidative stress because you've been over dieting, not getting enough micronutrients, not getting enough minerals to make the enzymes that you need to transform all these proteins and do all the stuff that's needed to run these detox pathways, because they're complex pathways. They require enzymes Enzymes make things run exponentially faster. They can take something and make it run 2,000 times as fast. But all enzymes have a mineral-based core, whether that's zinc or magnesium or selenium or whatever it may be. If you don't have enough of those minerals, you don't make enough of those enzymes, right? And so what that means is if you can't run the process faster, you have to run it longer, which means it uses up more energy. But you're already in a calorie deficit, so you're going to start to feel tired and sluggish because you're not going to be able to make up for a lower enzyme concentration because you don't have the ability to expend more energy to buffer that slow, sluggish process, whatever it may be. So when we're in a calorie excess, we tend to be able to buffer, we'll say poor micronutrients a little bit better. That's not saying you're healthier if you're eating a ton of empty calories. It just means you have a slight resilience to some of this stuff that would happen. But if you're at an appropriate calories or a calorie deficit, but you're loading it up with micronutrients, chances are you're going to be in a better spot. So everything comes in context. In reality, everything is important, or none of it would be important. So calories do matter, but the way a calorie deficit feels and how big of a calorie deficit you need, how fast the results you will get from a calorie deficit, the way you will feel in a calorie deficit is going to depend on all of the other variables. What you're eating, the quality of that food, what are its macros, when are you eating it, and how is that matching what you're doing from a training perspective.